वेलकम टू प्रिंस स्टूडेंट हाउस स्टूडेंट्स। लीगल डिक्टेशन हम नॉन स्टॉप दे रहे हैं आपको 120 वर्ड्स ए मिनट। एक्सरसाइज नंबर 25, 26 एंड 27 लीगल रियल जजमेंट से हमारे यूट्यूब चैनल प्रिंस स्टूडेंट हाउस में आपको प्लेलिस्ट में मिलेगा लीगल डिक्टेशंस, और उसकी प्लेलिस्ट से आप डेली लिखिए नॉन स्टॉप 120। साथ में पीडीएफ में आपको मिलेगी एडवांस लीगल फ्रेजिंग और वर्ड्स मीनिंग एंड आउटलाइंस। तो हम स्टार्ट करते हैं 120 वर्ड्स ए मिनट एक्सरसाइज नंबर 25। रेडी, स्टार्ट। The Tendency Act was enacted to amend the law relating to tendencies of agricultural land and to make certain other provisions in regard thereto, by reasons of the said provisions having regard to the economic and social conditions of peasants, and for ensuring full and efficient use of land for agriculture, it was considered expedient to assume management of estates held by landholders and to regulate and impose restrictions on the transfer of agricultural lands, dwelling houses, sites, and lands thereto belonging to or occupied by agriculturists, agricultural laborers, and artisans in the province of Bombay, and to make provisions for certain other purposes therein after appearing. The Tendency Act came into force with effect from 2nd April 1940. Landholders means a jamidar or any person not herein before specified who is a holder of land or who is interested in land and whom the state government has declared on account of the extent and value of the land or his interest therein to be a landholder for the purposes of this act. Agriculturist has been defined in section 2 of the Tendency Act to mean a person who cultivated a land personally. The words to cultivate with grammatical variation and cognate expressions means to till or husband the land for the purpose of raising or improving agricultural produce, whether by manual or labor or by means of cattle or machinery, or to carry on any agricultural operation thereon, and the expression uncultivated is to be construed correspondingly. Section 31 of the Tendency Act empowers a landlord to terminate a tendency after giving notice and making an application for possession as provided for in subsection 2 thereof, if the same is required by him inter alia for cultivating purposes. However, such option could be exercised in the manner required under subsection 2 in terms whereof notices were to be served by 31st December 1956. Section 32 of the Tendency Act provides for an option to the tenants to purchase the land in their possession, which reads as under. Tenants deemed to have purchased land on Tiller's Day, on the first day of April 1957, every tenant shall, subject to the other provisions of this section and the provisions of the next succeeding sections, to be deemed to have purchased from this landlord free of all encumbrances subsisting thereon on the said day the land held by him as tenant, if such tenant is a permanent tenant thereof and cultivates land personally, or such tenant is not a permanent tenant but cultivates the land leased personally. The said provision was amended by Maharashtra Act of 1961. The amended provision also indicates that the statutory scheme is that the legal fiction contained therein ensures to the benefit of the tiller of the land. Respondent herein served a notice upon his landlord expressing his desire to pay the purchase price of the land in terms of section 32G of the Tenancy Act. The Tehsildar opined that as the tenancy commenced on the date of re-grant, The tenant ought to have given a notice within 1 year from the date thereof as contemplated thereof, and as such a notice had not been given, the proceedings were dropped by order dated 31st January 1984. An appeal there against was filed by respondent, and by an order dated 19th November 1985, the appellate authority opined that the provisions of section 32 of the Tenancy Act were not applicable and the tenant was entitled to purchase the tenanted land in terms of section 32G thereof. Next, exercise number 26. This is a petition under section 482 of the Code of Criminal Procedure. Read with article 2 to 7 of the Constitution seeking causing of the case arising from FIR number 613/2007 at Police Station Krishnanagar under section 323 and 341 of IPC. The FIR was registered on a complaint made by an Anupam Rastogi, who alleged that he had come to the house of her daughter Neha to discuss certain family matters and was present on the first floor when he was called downstairs by the father-in-law of his daughter. Four other persons named in the FIR were also present there. The discussion resulted in an altercation, and during the course of altercation, two of them, namely Subodh and Miku, caught hold of him by the neck, whereas Pappu and Guddu gave him legs and give first blows. Charge sheet for the offences was filed after completion of investigation. At the time of arguments before the trial court on issue of notice, it was contended on behalf of the petitioners that non-cognizable offence is made out against them on the basis of the allegations made in the FIR, and no permission had been taken from the magistrate for carrying out investigation into non-cognizable offence. The learned Metropolitan Magistrate agreed that no offence was made out but declined to review the order, whereby cognizance was taken on the ground that he did not have power to review an earlier order whereby cognizance was taken. Notice accordingly was given to the petitioners for the offence punishable, giving an option to the petitioners to move this court for causing the FIR and consequent proceedings. Relying upon the decision of this court, it was contended by the learned senior counsel for the petitioners that since the offence under section 341 of IPC is admittedly not made out and the offence under section 323 of IPC is a non-cognizable offence, the investigation having been conducted illegally, cognizance was bad in law, and the proceedings are therefore liable to be quashed. The cognizance can be taken by the magistrate upon point A receipt of complainant disclosing facts constituting commission of an offence. Point B, upon a police report disclosing such facts, or point C, on his own knowledge. A bare perusal of clause B above would show that the magistrate can take cognizance of any offence irrespective of whether it is cognizable offence or non-cognizable offence upon a police report disclosing such facts as would constitute commission of an offence. The foundation of the jurisdiction of the magistrate for taking cognizance of an offence does not depend upon the validity or otherwise of an investigation carried out by the police. It depends only upon the set of facts and circumstances placed before the court, from which the court comes to conclusion that they constitute commission of an offence. It would therefore not be correct to say that cognizance of an invalid police report is prohibited necessarily in law and is therefore a nullity, a defect or illegality in investigation, however serious, has no direct bearing on the competence or the procedure relating to cognizance or trial. No doubt, a police report which results from an investigation are provided as the material on which cognizance is taken, but it cannot be maintained that a valid and legal police report is the foundation of the jurisdiction of the court to take cognizance. It is not possible to say that cognizance on an invalid police report is prohibited and is therefore a nullity. Next, exercise number 27. Such an invalid report may still fall in any case. Cognizance so taken is only in the nature of error in a proceeding attendant to the trial. If therefore cognizance is in fact taken on a police report vitiated by the breach of the a mandatory provision relating to investigation, there can be no doubt that the result of the trial which follows it cannot be set aside unless the illegality in the investigation can be shown to have brought about a miscarriage of justice. Assuming that the police report based upon facts discovered during such an investigation cannot form the basis for taking cognizance. For the reasons stated above, the petitioners must face trial for the offence. However, since no offence under section 341 of IPC is made out from the allegations made against them, their trial under that section cannot be allowed to continue. The proceedings pending against the petitioners are therefore quashed to the extent that they pertain to offence under section 341 of IPC. The proceedings will, however, continue for the offence thereof. The disputes between the parties pertained to the claims of the objector for load violation charges, misuse charges, and low power factor levied on the basis of an inspection conducted on 7th September 1989 in the premises of the petitioner, which is the registered consumer of the electricity connection. By the impugned award, the arbitrator has disallowed the claims based on each of the three aforesaid charges. The first issue pertains to the claim for misuse charges. The objector alleged misuse for the electricity connection on account of the fact that the electricity connection which was sanctioned in the name of the petitioner was being used by one MS Delta Electronics Private Limited. Full stop. As per the contention of the objector, this amounted to misuse and therefore misuse charges were payable. The arbitrator has held that misuse charges are not payable for the reasons. Point 1. The company MS Delta Electronic Private Limited was found to be a sister concern of the petitioner registered consumer, and which sister concern was under the same management and which had around 99% common share holding. Point second, the arbitrator held that there is no definition of misuse in the relevant tariff rules, and consequently the ordinary meaning of misuse as applicable in a relationship between a landlord and a tenant should be looked into, and which they done shows that there is no subletting. Point third, it has been thoroughly held by the arbitrator by referring to the agreement that the user of electricity by a sister concern does not amount to transfer or parting with possession of the electricity connection. All the above reasons are perfectly valid, and I do not find that the objections by the objector with regard to sustaining of its claim for misuse charges are at all justified. The arbitrator has arrived at a finding of fact after referring to the returns filed by both the companies before the registrar of companies, and also with reference to the provisions of Companies Act that both the companies are sister concerns and alter egos of each other. The facts of the present case are not such that there is subletting of electricity from one company to another company, or from one entity to another entity, which are wholly unrelated to each other, in the sense that one is a complete stranger to the other. Stop.